Welcome to Gaming on a Budget. Today we bring you an extra special episode of Mansions of Madness. Very exciting. This is a heavily thematic game from Fantasy Flight Games, of course, that, it takes place in the Arkham Horror universe, and with all the Cthulhu and horror and wriggliness that entails. And so far from what I've seen, it is just dripping in the theme. Possibly even more so than Arkham, though that's debatable, of course. Now this, we're doing a little differently than usual. We played a little get to know the rules game. We've gone through the rule book and the forums and all that good stuff. But really, it's our first serious play of the game. We may screw up some rules, but you're going to get to see pretty much the out-of-the-box experience. So, let me know what you think, if it was good, bad, never do it again, do it all the time. So, most of the rules are going to make more sense just mentioning them as they come along. Basic gist of it is each investigator gets 2 movement points and an action. Which can be a variety of things. It can even be another move. And then the keeper, or the, master of all things evil, will take his turn, which is full of mystery and darkness to me, since I've never been a keeper. I am a dedicated good guy, I assure you. Though, if you ask me, some of the good guys are a little questionable in this universe, but still. We are going to delve deeply into the madness and hopefully come out alive. Okay, so we've got quite a bit of flavor text for you. The little blurb we're going to read to you, but the larger blurb we're just going to show you real quick here. And if you'd like to pause the video and read it, that's, always a good thing. If not, don't worry about it. It's not vital to understanding the gameplay by any means. So why don't we head on over to our resident expert rules explainer and go ahead and get started with our descent into madness.
You can read the bottom.
Oh, I'm going to read it? Okay.
Yeah, just the bottom part.
Alright. Light rain falls on your face as you exit your car in front of the estate. The house is huge, unkempt, and shrouded in eerie silence as you approach. You rap on the door, and there is no response. A moment later, the door creaks open of its own accord, and you enter the foyer of the enormous mansion. As you set foot in the vacant home, you notice the faint smell of burnt food. Perhaps someone forgot to turn off the stove. Do I read 3A and 3B?
3A.
Okay. Alright, so that's where we are. Now,
the game itself goes from 2 phases, distinct phases. There's the Investigator phase, which will be the good guys phase, and then there will be the Keepers phase, which is essentially, if you're familiar with Descent, will be the Overlord phase. It's effectively the same thing. You get threat tokens, you get cards that you can play, you have spells and abilities, which are available from the beginning of the round, from the beginning of the game, and each of the 5 scenarios that the game comes with has different starting cards. So each scenario is significantly different. Also, each scenario has 3 different choices as far as objectives go. There's 3 objectives, and then there's some small clues that you have to pick from, and there's A and B, sometimes there's A, B, and C. That also decides what clues get set out. Now, I'm just going to preface this by saying that the setup time for this, as you've probably read elsewhere, is long. It takes quite a bit of time for the keeper to set his stuff up because he has to go through every single deck and pull out the cards that the keeper's guide tells you to, and then set each room up in a specific way. It is very possible and probable that you can screw those up. If you screw that up, there's even a section of the rules that tells you if you get caught doing that, you have to fix it, and then you lose a turn. So
save something for the summary there, big guy.
Whatever. I'm just going off the top of my head. Anyways, you know how it goes. So, starting with the Investigator's turn, let's get back to the rules. Investigators have 2 things they do on their turn. They have 2 movement points, which lets them move between anywhere on the board for these white lines. This would be a movement. They have 2 of these to start with. And then they have an action, which can be one of 5 things. It can be in the most complicated and most used as an explore action, which lets you look at the cards in the room. You do not have to be in that specific space to explore, just in that general room. Like the foyer can be explored from anywhere in here, just as long as they have that name on the board. And so like this one here is the basement, and then this one down here, there's the basement stairs, the basement storage, etc., etc. And each of those has a specific setup for it. Now, the Explorer, like I said, you have to, when we get to those rooms, I'll explain what those different cards mean. For now, all you have to know is you start from the top and work your way down through it, one card at a time. If something stops you, you stop, you do whatever it says, and then you continue on if you can. There's the other action is to do another movement, so you can have a total of 3 moves, but that's completely and utterly pretty much if you have nothing else to do and you want to keep moving. So it lets you move 3 times, which is kind of good because the most a monster can move is twice with one of these command actions. So yeah, the good guys can outrun the bad guys in essence. So it's good to know that. I mean, if you need to get away from something, there's a good chance that they can't catch you unless the keeper plays some other cards, but I'm rambling on again. What are the other 3 actions? You can drop items, I believe. I have this little cheat sheet that I made. Yeah, you can drop items, you can attack a monster, which is really kind of important, or you can use a card ability, which is an action. And that's pretty much sums it up. All the investigators take a turn, keeper takes a turn, investigators take a turn, keeper takes a turn, and it keeps going back and forth. Other things I should mention, the neat thing that comes with this as far as combat goes, we have decks, I'll explain that in combat. You have Mythos cards and Insanity cards, which are kind of the cards that the keeper gets to play on the investigators. Threat tokens, kind of like Descent, where it's what you use to pay for your cards. You've got not objectives, this is a time cards pretty much. I don't remember what they're actually called in-game. We'll figure that out in a little bit. But these are events that happen after a certain amount of time goes by, and they're rarely very good for the investigators. Then there's an objective card, which only I know the objective, what it is, and how to win. In order for the investigators to get through and figure out how to win, they have to find all the clues. Until then, they have no idea what to do. So they're trying to figure out the clues by going to each room, undoing the locks, whatever, and then just continuing on until objective 1 comes out. Sorry, that's my clock. The card objective card. The clue card 1 comes out, then this is revealed, and the endgame begins. And endgame as in when you die in endgame, you're dead. You can't do anything, you don't come back. That being said, it's the investigator's turn at this point. I'll explain any relevant rules as it comes along, and we'll lead.
Personally now, I think that sound is very thematically appropriate, but that's just me. In fact, I kind of wish it would go off every 5 minutes or so.
It's a bunch of birds.
But still, it sounds... Anyway, alright, so, I am Jenny Barnes, the Dilettante. One of my favorites across the various Arkham games. I think I'm gonna start out heading towards this section of the board. Those obstacles were confuddling me in the learning game, so I want to take another crack at them. I want my revengeance.
Obstacles?
So, yeah, there's tentacle
obstacle
things
cards,
obstacles.
lock cards, and exploration cards.
So this is all one big zone here, so I'm going to go 1. I'll leave that card for you. And 2. And from here, I'm going to explore that pile there.
Alright. You find an axe.
Oh, snap. I got me a beefy melee weapon.
4.
Yeah, boy. Alright. So, that's my turn.
But your strength is high.
Oh yeah, my strength is... Actually, it's not bad, considering I have a 5.
Oh, +1.
No, just a 5.
It's actually a 5.
She's pretty beefy for a dilettante.
Oh,
Okay, alright, go ahead, sweetie.
Okay, so I'm playing Ashcan Pete, because, you know, he's awesome. And I guess I'm going to... I can explore from where I'm at?
yes, you can.
Okay, then I'm going to go ahead and I can start out that way, right?
The bane
I
of my
find nothing of
existence.
interest.
I hate that card. There's like 1,000 of them.
Okay, well, you know, like in horror movies, it always seems like a good idea to split up. So I think I'm gonna go the opposite direction.
I don't know. I got pretty violated in the kitchen last time.
Was that where I'm going?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then 2, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. So that's the kitchen.
Now we go to
That's the keeper's turn.
keep it.
Start of my turn, there's an investigator phase where they can switch items if they're in the same room. It's not going to happen.
Are we in the same room?
You are way the heck apart, so I don't have to worry about that. But it's worth noting because it can be important, especially if you need to trade items. This is the point at which you do so. So I will get 2 threat points. Where I put those? Okay, I got 2 threat. I don't get to draw cards in this game unless I pay for it. I seem to be distracted. Yeah, that doesn't do me any good. So in order to draw a card, I have to use this card called Evil Presence, which lets me draw a Mythos and a Trauma card, and if I wish, I can skip the rest of my action phase, which means I do nothing else, and get an extra threat. Which means the card pays for itself and I get to draw cards, but effectively if I do that, that's all I do, unless I choose not to skip my action phase. But since I'm kind of low on cards, I don't have any, I'm going to take that. So I get an Insanity Trauma card and a Mythos, which I can use. And it's worth saying, Mythos cards I can only play during the opponent investigator's turns, once per investigator. I don't get to play anything on my turn for that. Okay.
But the sanity cards you can?
Insanity cards are cards that generally have a cost. They either have a cost or they don't. They affect either sanity or physical strength, the health. And they require it to be at a certain level or below. So sometimes there's ones that have like sanity 4, and I can't play those on an investigator until you get 4 or less sanity, and then it's open season.
Okay.
So being low sanity and low health has its own little downsides in this game. I mean, yes, if you die in the beginning or near the middle, before the objective's revealed, you come back with a new character, but then you're starting at ground zero with barely anything, and you're kind of catching up. And there could be a bunch of creatures out. So, that being said, you don't want to die if you can avoid it. That's useful. Okay,
Very sage.
I'm going to go ahead and end my action phase and get that back. After that, I have a turn where I can attack. I have no monsters, so I put a time token on the event deck, and it goes back to the investigators.
Alright.
Okay.
That is one entire turn for both of us. So,
Alright.
Quick.
I think I'm gonna go with my gut here. I'm gonna go chink chink and get started on the hideous objective pile. That is made of hate and meanness.
Made of what?
Hate and meanness.
Oh, okay.
nah.
The obstacles are
So,
sad-faced.
starting with the top card, since I have 3 in here, I start with revealing that we have a power failure.
Wow.
Oh.
Which means the room plunges into darkness. It doesn't do much this turn, but if any rooms have a darkness token, in order to explore, you have to spend a movement and an action. So it slows it down. And since there's a power failure, he has to go through
And solve
wiring puzzle 1A as shown on the card.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I will do is draw for the puzzle.
Now, something we can each do is, you see we have a luck value there that is not actually used for tests. What that is if you spend one of your skill points, you can add that value to any other value. For this puzzle, I'm going to have a number of actions I can take to solve it equal to my intellect, which unfortunately is quite low. So, what I'm going to do is spend one of my little skill tokens here to add my luck of 2 to it. So I will have an intellect of 6 to try and overcome this challenge. The way it's going to work is that I'll basically be trying to connect these 2 points through little circuit tiles that will have different colors and combinations of wires, and I have to go from a color to that same color and make a loop between them. I can rotate tiles, I can replace tiles, and I can swap with adjacent tiles. So, keeping that in mind, I have to find a way in 6 moves to make a logical connection here.
I will interject and say you don't have just 6 moves. That's just how many you can take per puzzle action. You can continue to do an unfinished puzzle on later turns or on investigators. Unless it gets reset.
I actually have a really nice setup here. I can use one of my actions to rotate this like so. So all I'm missing is this connection right here. So since I don't see any physical way I can make this part work, I'm going to flip a new tile, and arrow pointing upwards is how it will start. So I'm gonna swap these 2 out. That's 2 of my 6 actions. And then I'm going to rotate for 3.
4. 90 degrees.
Oh, okay, sure. So that was 2. So for 4 actions, I just completed the loop. The power puzzle is solved. That was extremely lucky, by the way. It's not normally that simple to solve.
That one's an easy one, though.
Yeah, it is. But that was still pretty fortunate.
Yeah.
Alright, so I've completed the circuit and the power is back on.
Yes, if he would not have finished that, it would have taken him extra movement points and actions to get in there and finish it, and it just kind of wastes an extra turn. So, what did he find in there? Since the power fair was done, goes back. You find nothing of interest.
Woo!
And it looks like a fire extinguisher.
Woo!
Which is another melee, and it also gets rid of fires, which fires spread, by the way. So, as we do in this game, fires can spread.
It's more useful dealing with fire than hitting things, especially for me with my cool axe. So that was both of my moves and my explore, right?
Yes.
Alright, so my turn is up. We are back to Ashcan Pete.
Quick question.
Yes.
Is there a hand limit?
No.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
I have a hand limit.
Or an
that's
item limit.
4. My limit is 4 investigate or 4 mythos and 4 insanity cards.
Okay.
But if I let you get that far down, then we're having some problems.
Alright. Well, I guess I'm going to explore the dining room.
Okay. You find a sedative.
Ooh.
Lets you get rid of an insanity on you or someone nearby, which is one of the only
that's-
ways to get rid of an insanity.
That
very
is
nice.
very helpful. So, because the other one, could I explore the other room?
No,
No,
you used your
because I
action.
used my
You used
action,
your
but I
action.
can move.
You can move.
And it has a separate label, so it is,
Oh,
those
it
are
is
separate
something.
rooms. So
Okay.
you have to use your move to get
Okay.
in there.
Well, let's just move me there
Okay.
for 2. Alright, back to the keeper.
And that's simple. You get 2 of those. You're not even in the near same rooms. Let's add some pressure. I'm gonna spend 4 to use a maniac attack, which means I get to spawn a maniac.
Oh.
Monsters in this game come with little deals, and there's little bases for them that you can either glue, which I did, or you can just put them on there and hope they stay. They don't stay, or they sometimes stay, they sometimes don't. Otherwise, you've got some relevant stats on here. You have their evade and their horror modifier. And whenever you walk into a room with a monster, you have to do a horror check, or whenever they walk in with you, or appear like this one is,
Spawn on top of you, yeah.
which he's probably crashing out from the refrigerator. or something.
He was hiding in the fridge.
On the
Seems
base,
legit.
I'm just going to flash it, but there's some text on the base which only the keeper gets to know about until he's injured. So until this guy gets hurt, the investigators will have no clue which maniac there are, because there's multiples of different of each monster in the game, and so each one has a different ability which is unique to it only. So out of like 6 or 7 cultists, they all have a different ability.
That's
so
cool.
running into a cultist, you never know what you're going to get. So anyway, he crashes out, and I'm going to put him in the room with Ashcan Pete, which means she has to make a attribute test. When you're making an attribute test, you're trying to roll a d10 underneath your
Oh, it's a D10.
Yes.
Well, that just
Equal to or less.
equal to or less. So
less than which
your
one?
willpower is a 6, and its horror
Only
is
willpower.
-1. So you roll under a
Under a
5 or
five?
5 or under is what you need.
Oh, I'm glad I went with jury rigging. Maybe not. False trail was I
And a
rolled a
9 is a
9.
failure, which means you take an immediate
So-
horror.
I'm afeared.
Basically, you've lost a point of sanity.
Aww.
You're now at 8.
But I like my brain's powers.
So,
Well, now you just have a little less.
Ooh, that's kind of cool looking.
so the rest of my action,
Of course, you went
I'm gonna
after
wait
you,
with that
me, and
one.
not
So
you.
I have my next phase, which is monster activation and attack, which I can do. So what I'm going to do is attack her with the maniac.
Woo.
In order to find out which of these decks to use, because each of the deck there's humanoids, beasts, and elder things. I start with the take a look and see what color it is, and it's blue, which means I start pulling from this deck until I get a monster attack. This first one I don't get to play because it's monster versus barrier, so I skip that. Gets discarded, and I have monster attack.
Oh.
So, with no sense of self-preservation, your enemy lashes out at you. Test dexterity.
Alright.
So she has to make
Is
a
that like a
dexterity test.
minus thing still, or is it
No,
just...
just dexterity.
Okay.
So 7 or less is what you're going to need.
7.
Oh, snap.
You are barely good. You managed to injure it and avoid its attack. You deal 1 damage.
Yay.
Nice. Well done, Pete.
Which means if you know... Now she can... If you want, you can look at the bottom of the base and see what you're dealing with.
Totally looking.
That special ability hurts like sin if you fail it.
Yeah. Is that the one that killed me last time?
4 damage and 1 horror if you fail.
The one that
special.
took my head off. Did the camera get to see?
I showed it to the camera first. I just couldn't read
So-
it through the...
But it's it's got 5 hit points and 1 damage.
Ow.
But the special on this one hurts. And anytime she wants to do anything other than attack it, she has to make an evade check and it gets a free hit on her. So, I put
Wait.
that there to slow her down. And that's its damage.
Wait, you said that this number shows the evade?
Evade modifier.
Modifier.
You still have to do a dexterity
Oh,
check.
okay. I test dexterity to
If you want to
evade.
do anything except attack it, yes. And adds every time you do so.
Okay.
All right. So was that the
That's
conclusion
it.
of your turn?
And
All
so
right.
I move this to...
So we're going to go ahead and pause the camera for a little bit now. We'll come back more around the middle-ish of the game. It's going to run way too long to film the whole thing, so we're going to show you beginning, middle, end. You've seen the beginning, and we'll see you again in a moment for the middle.